Hey, you. Welcome back for another deep dive.
It's great to be back.
Today, we're getting our hands a little dirty with soil amendments and fertilizers.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at Chapter 8 of Deep Roots.
Excellent chapter.
All about practical tips for making any soil thrive, really.
Whether you've got a window box.
Right.
Or, a whole farm.
We're going to be zeroing in on sections 8.1 through 8.3.
Okay.
Soil amendments by depth, fertilizer application strategies, and amendments for waterlogged soils.
That's a lot to cover.
It is.
Yeah.
But, we like to dig deep, so.
Right into it.
Let's dig in.
What I find fascinating about this chapter is how it really emphasizes that working with soil is a long game.
Okay.
It's not about quick fixes.
Okay.
It's about truly understanding your soil.
Yeah.
And building its health over time.
So it's not just about throwing a bunch of random stuff in there and hoping for the best.
Definitely not. It's more strategic than that.
Okay, so I need an actual game plan.
Exactly. And that's what this chapter dives into, understanding amendments and fertilizers based on the depth of your soil.
Okay.
Which is so crucial for long-term success.
Right. So we're talking about treating different layers of the soil differently.
Absolutely.
Tell me more.
Okay. So think of it this way. You wouldn't just slap some paint on a house, right?
Literally.
Without prepping the walls first.
Right.
Soil's the same way. You've got your surface layer where most of the action happens, but then you've got the subsoil underneath, which is often neglected.
Okay. I've heard about topsoil, but subsoil.
Right.
What's the difference?
So topsoil is that rich layer we all love.
Right.
Full of organic matter, all those nutrients. That's where most plant roots kind of hang out.
Makes sense.
Subsoil, on the other hand, it's denser, it's less fertile.
Okay.
And it doesn't drain as well, but it's still really vital for anchoring plants and providing water reserves.
So we need to work with both layers to have truly healthy soil.
Precisely. And that's where this chapter, I think, gets really interesting.
Yeah.
It breaks down specific amendments for each layer.
Okay. Let's talk about those amendments. What kind of stuff are we using?
The source really focuses heavily on organic amendments, like compost.
Yeah.
And aged manure.
Compost, my old friend.
Everyone loves compost.
I add that to my garden every year. Is that, enough?
It's a fantastic start. Think of compost as a multivitamin for your soil.
Okay.
It adds organic matter, improves soil structure, it boosts water retention.
Yeah.
And provides a feast for those beneficial microbes.
So it's not just about the nutrients.
It's not.
Okay.
Compost is like a slow release fertilizer too, as it breaks down. It releases nutrients over time, so it feeds your plants gradually.
So it's more sustainable than just using the chemical fertilizers.
Absolutely. And it helps to create this thriving ecosystem in your soil.
Oh, cool.
Which in turn makes your plants healthier.
All right, I'm sold on compost. What about aged manure?
Yeah.
Is that similar?
It is similar, yeah.
Okay.
But with a slightly different nutrient profile.
Oh.
Manure is higher in nitrogen and phosphorus, which are both essential for plant growth.
Of course. Okay, so when do you use compost versus manure?
Well, the source recommends top dressing with compost for vegetable gardens.
Yeah.
So you basically spread a layer on the soil surface,
right,
which helps boost nutrient availability.
Makes sense. What about that deeper subsoil?
Yeah. For the subsoil, they suggest incorporating aged manure before planting deep-rooted perennials.
Like trees?
Like trees and shrubs.
Love it.
It helps to improve the structure and fertility of those deeper layers where the roots will be growing.
So it's all about matching the amendment to the soil layer.
Yes.
And the types of plants you're growing.
Exactly. It's about understanding the needs of both the soil and the plants.
Well, this is already making me rethink my whole gardening approach. I feel like I've been neglecting my subsoil.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not anymore.
But once you start paying attention to those deeper layers, you'll be amazed at the difference it makes in your plant's overall health.
Okay. I'm ready to give my subsoil some love.
Now, what about fertilizers? I always get a little overwhelmed by all the different types.
Yeah.
And numbers.
I understand.
Yeah.
It can be a bit of a minefield, but don't worry. This chapter breaks down fertilizer strategies in a way that's pretty easy to understand and apply.
That's a relief. I'm all for sustainable gardening, but...
Of course.
Right.
I
also want my plants to thrive.
Absolutely. And they can. The source provides some really smart strategies to ensure that we're using fertilizer efficiently and sustainably, because no one wants to waste fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
Or pollute waterways.
Exactly.
So tell me more about these strategies. Like, what's the key to using fertilizer responsibly?
I think the most important thing is understanding the why behind these strategies. You know, it's not just about following the rules. It's about understanding how fertilizer interacts with the soil, with the water table, and even the climate.
Okay, so it's not just about, like, dumping a bag of fertilizer on the plants and calling it a day.
Definitely not.
Okay, good.
We need to be strategic about it.
All right.
So let's break down some of the key strategies that the source highlights.
Sounds good. I'm ready to become a fertilizer pro.
First up, we've got splitting nitrogen applications.
Splitting nitrogen applications?
Yeah.
I never even heard of that. Why would you do that?
So it's all about minimizing nutrient loss.
Okay.
Especially in like sandy soils. Imagine pouring a glass of water onto sand.
Yeah.
It just drains right through.
Yeah.
Nitrogen can act the same way.
Oh, okay.
Especially if it's applied all at once.
So it's about making sure the plants have time to actually, like, absorb the nitrogen.
Exactly.
Before it washes away.
Yeah. Splitting the applications gives the plants a chance to take up the nitrogen gradually.
Okay.
Which reduces the risk of it just leaching into the groundwater.
That makes a lot of sense.
All right.
I have a few spots in my garden that are, like, really sandy.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to try the splitting technique. What else have you got?
Well, this next one might surprise you. Using cover crops.
Cover crops. Okay, I've heard that term thrown around.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely sure what they are or like how they fit into this whole fertilizer picture.
Think of cover crops as nutrient superheroes.
Okay.
They swoop in and they capture any leftover nutrients, especially nitrogen, that might be hanging around in the soil after the main crop is harvested.
So instead of those nutrients just sitting there.
Exactly.
Or washing away, the cover crop just gobbles them up.
That's a great way to put it. And then when you till that cover crop back into the soil, it decomposes and it releases those captured nutrients.
Oh, cool.
Making them available for your next crop.
So it's like a natural recycling system.
It is.
That's pretty genius. So I'm guessing Deep Roots recommends like specific types of cover crops?
It does. For example, it highlights rye
as
a really effective cover crop for scavenging nitrogen.
Interesting.
But there are tons of other options out there.
Right.
And the best choice really depends on your specific climate and soil type.
This is making me rethink my entire like gardening approach.
Yeah.
I need to be way more strategic about what I'm planting and when. It's not just about what looks pretty.
Aesthetics are important, but function is key in a healthy garden.
Very true.
Speaking of function, our last fertilizer strategy from the source is all about timing.
Timing. Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's about matching the type of fertilizer you use to the plant's growth cycle.
Right.
And this is where slow-release fertilizers come into play.
Slow-release fertilizers. I think I've seen those at the garden center.
Yeah.
But I've always just opted for like the regular kind. What's the advantage of going slow?
It's like giving your plants a timed release vitamin. Slow-release fertilizers provide nutrients gradually over time, ensuring that the plants have a steady supply right when they need it most.
So it's a more efficient way to deliver those nutrients.
It is.
Less chance of runoff.
Precisely.
Okay.
And because you're not hitting the plants with this huge dose of nutrients all at once, it's gentler on the soil and the environment.
Okay. I'm officially a slow release convert.
Good.
I never realized how much thought goes into like choosing and applying fertilizers.
It's more than just,
I feel like I've been doing it all wrong.
Don't worry, most of us have been there.
Okay, good.
But that's the beauty of learning and experimenting in the garden. Right. There's always something new to discover.
That is very true. Speaking of discoveries, are you ready to tackle a common gardening woe?
Oh, yeah. Bring it on. Yeah. Let's talk about waterlogged soils.
Ooh, yes. Please.
Yeah, because I know.
I have a few spots in my garden that like turn into a swamp after a good rain.
Oh, yeah.
It's so frustrating.
It's definitely a challenge. But the good news is Deep Roots offers some pretty practical solutions.
Okay, good.
So let's dive into section 8.3.
Okay. I'm all ears.
All right.
My poor plants are practically drowning.
Before we jump into solutions, though, it's important to understand, like, why waterlogged soils are so problematic.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not just about soggy roots.
Right. I know that, like, too much water can suffocate plants.
Yeah.
But is there more to it?
There is. It's like a whole chain reaction that happens. When soil is waterlogged, it creates what's called an anaerobic environment.
Okay.
Meaning there's not enough oxygen.
Right.
Which then throws off the balance of microorganisms in the soil.
So, like, the good guys can't thrive, and the bad guys, like, take over.
Exactly.
Ugh.
And these anaerobic conditions can also lead to the buildup of harmful substances that can damage plant roots.
Yuck. Okay, so we need to fix that soggy soil.
We do.
ASAP. What are our options?
So the source outlines a range of options, from like simple amendments to more complex solutions like installing drainage systems.
Wow. Okay. Let's start with the amendments.
Okay.
What can we add to the soil to improve drainage?
One classic amendment for clay soils, which are notorious for holding on to water, right?
Yeah.
Is gypsum.
Gypsum. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what it is or how it works, though.
So gypsum is this naturally occurring mineral that helps to break up compacted clay particles. Well, it basically creates more space in the soil for water to drain through.
So it's like adding air pockets to the soil.
That's a great way to put it. The source also mentions adding coarse sand to clay soil for a similar effect.
Sand makes sense, because it's like so much more free draining than clay.
Exactly. So by adding gypsum and sand, you're essentially changing the texture of the soil.
Oh, okay.
Making it less dense.
Yeah.
More hospitable to plant roots.
I'm already imagining my clay soil transformed into like this fluffy haven for my plants.
That's the vision.
Okay, awesome. Now, if you're looking for more of a structural solution, the source recommends raised beds.
Ah, yes. Raised beds.
I actually have a few of those already, and they've been a lifesaver for my, like, really water-sensitive plants.
They're a fantastic option because you're physically elevating the planting area, right?
Yeah.
Above the surrounding soil.
Right.
So even if the ground gets soggy, those roots in the raised bed are high and dry.
Yeah, it's like building a little platform for your plants to escape the flood.
Exactly. And you have more control over the soil composition in a raised bed, which is a bonus. Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, so raised beds are great. But what if you're dealing with like a larger area or a really, really severe drainage problem?
Well, for those situations, the source brings up French drains.
French drains. I've always wondered what those are. They sound so fancy.
They are. They're essentially underground trenches filled with gravel that redirect water flow away from problem areas.
So it's like creating an escape route for the excess water.
Exactly. It is a more involved solution, but it can be incredibly effective.
Right.
For addressing like those persistent drainage issues.
This is all so helpful. I feel like I finally have a handle on how to deal with those soggy spots in my garden.
That's great. Just remember, the key is to assess your specific situation.
Okay.
And choose the solution that makes the most sense.
Right.
For your soil type,
yeah,
your plants, and, of course, your budget.
Great advice. It's not like a one-size-fits-all.
Exactly. And remember, soil health is a journey.
That's true. Not a destination.
Well said. I'm feeling really inspired to keep learning and experimenting with my soil.
That's fantastic.
It's fascinating how much there is to discover.
It really is. And as you continue to learn, you'll become a better gardener. And a better steward of the land.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into amendments and fertilizers. Thank you so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new and are feeling empowered to create healthier, more vibrant soil in your own gardens and landscapes.
Happy gardening, everyone.